Okay, what are some examples of estate plans gone wrong?
So obviously the biggest one is my grandmother's. Now, I know we're talking about DIY plans, but I do want to point out that even some attorneys are not very good at what they do. So my grandmother had a will. It epically failed. My dad ended up in probate court for 4 years. It was changed post mental capacity, meaning that after my grandmother was no longer legally allowed to change it, all of a sudden it magically changed. And then when my grandfather passed away 6 years later, my dad ended up in probate court for 4 years and spent over $200,000 in attorney's fees. So when I think of plans that went wrong, obviously that's the first one that comes to my mind. But of course, because I do what I do, I hear the stories all the time of all these plans that have gone wrong. I think one of my favorites is I had a woman come in and her dad had a lot of property in Jackson County. Very successful real estate investor, just started collecting property back when it was even way easier to do than it is now. And he promised her that he had everything organized. He had it all ready. It was good to go when he passed away. And then lo and behold, when he passed away, it was not. So for the past several years, she's been going through 2 probates, one for her mom, one for her dad, trying to even get a hold of these properties while still trying to manage them because there's so many properties and she doesn't even technically own them yet. And basically what her dad did was he basically wrote out his own will saying that he was going to leave these properties to his daughter, these properties to his son. It doesn't help, by the way. The son is in jail now, so that's just a little twist to the story. But that being said, again, wills don't avoid probate. So even if this had been a valid will, it was still all going to end up in probate court, and all of these properties were going to end up in probate court. But because it wasn't about a valid will, because he just literally wrote it down on a piece of paper and then did an Excel spreadsheet splitting up the properties, that's not a valid will. Now she's having to get her brothers to sign off on everything and to agree to this split that their dad had come up with that is very equal, but her brother doesn't want to do it and he's in jail. So obviously that is a very extreme example of DIY plans that went totally wrong. Another one though is, and I hear this one all the time, people do wills online and they have a special needs loved one. I had a lady come in who had a will, and she literally told me that the only reason she was coming in is because she wanted to make sure that her child with special needs was protected. But she came in not really wanting to hear anything I told her. And I always tell people, I'm like, if you don't trust me to be your counselor, to be your estate planning attorney, then I'm probably not a good fit for you. Because you do need to trust me and take from my experience and my knowledge and the fact that I did go to law school and I have studied this and have had this business for 6 years. And if you don't trust me, then it's not going to be a good fit, because the will that she was insisting upon using literally did nothing to protect her son. She did it on an online platform. It did not correctly protect the money for government benefits. Her son would have been disqualified in a heartbeat. It was completely wrong. It was literally 5 pages of gibberish. I tried to read through it. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. A judge would throw this out in a heartbeat. And then guess what? Her special needs son is going to inherit money and he's going to be disqualified from special needs. So I see a lot of situations like that where if there's special needs involved, where they think that they've done it online or a bad attorney has protected them or protected their child, and it has not. So that is a huge example. But even just the run of the mill, simple family, property, retirement, 2 kids, never blended or anything like that. They'll have a will that they created online. And again, it doesn't accomplish anything that they're trying to accomplish, or better yet, I have a family that created a living trust online because living trusts are better, right? So they created a living trust. I think it was on LegalZoom or willsandtrust.com or whatever, because, you know, Matthew Stafford tells you that you should do willsandtrust.com. I wish we had his phone number so we could call him up and actually ask him if he'd used willsandtrust.com, because if he did, he's the biggest moron in the world. And yes, I went to school with you, Matt. I knew you in college. Don't play games. We all know you're not doing your estate planning documents online. So they did this living trust online, willsandtrust.com, LegalZoom, whatever it is. And they're like, okay, well, I did this trust, and they brought it in. It's about 15 pages. Just to give you an idea of what my trust looks like, it's about 90 pages. A lot of proactive content that we know a judge would want to see if it ever ended up in court. Obviously, this was 15 pages. It had absolutely no special needs clauses in there. But even more importantly, even more than what the language said, they never funded it. And a living trust is not going to work unless it actually controls our assets. So we do have to move our house into the trust. We do have to retitle some bank accounts and investment accounts. We do need to make sure that beneficiary designations are updated. And they hadn't done any of this because they didn't have anyone guiding them through the process. So if they had passed away with just this trust in place, it would not have worked at all. Everything still would have ended up in probate, and the best that this trust could have done was maybe acted as evidence for the judge to look at. So again, it's really important that if you are trying to avoid probate, if you're trying to avoid conflict, if you're trying to make things as easy as possible on the back end, you do need to meet with a professional who can guide you through this process and someone who specializes in estate planning. Do not go to a lawyer that does wills on the side. They're not doing any better than those online drafting companies. So always find an attorney that actually specializes in it so that they can make sure that whatever the document says is correct and that it is going to actually work on the back end. So yeah, so those are some examples of some real life scenarios that I've seen firsthand sitting in the chair. Another couple are, one woman got elder abuse scammed, and so her documents did nothing to protect her in the event of incapacity. See that all the time. So the son came in here, him and his wife, and they're like, 100% we want to protect against this. So we did. And then another one that I saw was a guardianship case. They had a will, it named guardians, but mysteriously the will just disappeared after they died. And so then it ended up in court fighting, because if you don't have the original will, it's not going to hold up in court. So, you know, there's lots of reasons that estate plans don't work. And it's often because they were not prepared correctly or they were not funded correctly on the back end.